Welcome to our friends Chris Avenick and David Perini, and to the viewers here or listeners. Super excited to have you guys here. We chatted with different perspectives, some product perspectives, and M&A and sales and people and culture. We haven't really had the full package of design and technology together, so I'm super excited to have you guys here to chat about that with us and really thinking through exactly how these things kind of work together and some of the experiences that we've had together as we've built these. For the listeners, all four of us actually worked together at one point at a company called Frontline Education, and it was a really fun experience. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit as well. So, gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So you two likely have experience then. Tell me if I'm wrong. Perspective around what are the decisions that are often made to get from the point of startup to mid-market or enterprise, the challenges there. But what are the decisions that are made there that end up biting you or having repercussions once you get to the point of enterprise and you need to scale further? Suddenly you look back and say, those were great decisions back then, but now they're causing us significant problems.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can start just because the what comes top of mind as you say that is, as a startup, smaller company in the, and more into the B2B space with e-commerce solutions, it's all about satisfying that first customer or the first two customers and getting the revenue generation. And when you're wearing that hat, all bets are off about, how are we going to scale, how are we going to grow this. It's what do we have to do right now for this customer. And and a lot of people who go through this and they get into their second one, they'll say, hey, listen, we can't make decisions specifically for this customer. We got to make sure we're not boxing ourselves in, and in one way or another it ends up happening in some capacity. So one of the biggest challenges from a tech perspective as you grow is decoupling your solution from being so specific to what those early customers wanted, so that you can scale it and grow it into a more of a multi-tenant type of fashion, which isn't always as nice as you would want it to be. It doesn't always happen. I worked at places where if you look in the code base, you'll definitely see code that has a logical code that says, if this customer do this, if else do this. And those are things, that's the baggage that you have to determine from a technical debt. Do you carry it? Do you change it? How do we actually grow this and scale it?
I've experienced a lot of what Chris described. I think when you look at it from the design perspective, whether that be company brand and identity design, or whether that is the user interface of the software that you're interacting with, I think a lot of the root causes, or a lot of the initial decisions when you're in startup mode are similar to what Chris described. That you are moving fast, you are getting your brand developed at low cost because you don't have a lot of money to invest. Your brand really is you. It's the very first few people who are part of the company and the culture that they bring to the table and their perspective on the problems that they're solving. But as you scale and as you grow, you tend to get to a point where now your culture is representing 50 people, 100 people, 200 people, and they all have different backgrounds, different perspectives on the problems that you're solving at the same time that you're solving more and more problems for more and more customers. And so the assumptions that you didn't even have to question day one, the brand identity that you had day one, that just came naturally because it was who you were and what you individually viewed your company as, all of that now has to scale and represent what your entire organization is doing and the new direction that you are going on. And to double tap on what Chris was saying too, there's the survival mechanism that you have at the beginning of your startup journey, where you're just trying to survive. You're just trying to pay the bills. You need to keep those customers as happy as possible, the first few that pay your bills. And it's very easy if you become successful, if you do survive, it's easy to get stuck on those first few days, those first few weeks, those first few months, how you define the company, how you frame the company. These are the problems that we're solving. You're like, well, we've already solved those. Like
Yeah.
now to acquire new business, you need to solve new problems. You need to have a new message. You need to have a new narrative, but that narrative needs to connect with where you started from, if that makes sense. So I think I lean more on the brand and identity side than on like the software design side.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would kind of be how I first approached that problem.
How often have you seen companies prepared for introspecting on the uniqueness of the identity or brand of their single product offering and realizing that that's now getting in the way the larger
Yeah.
the larger identity that needs to be crafted in order to bring the other offerings in the fold for that same ICP?
Yeah. Well, I think most, if not all of us, saw this at Frontline, right? That when you start out with a single product, with a single offering, um, your brand is synonymous with that product. And when you start to grow that into two, three, four different products or solutions or functional areas, um, now you've got a challenge because you need to distinguish between the company and the individual products that you are offering. And I I think you need to really think carefully about what makes you unique and what do people recognize you as. So if they recognize you as the product, you may need to realize that that is currently your company branding, and you may lean into that and instead define different flavor, different sub brands underneath that, rather than say, for example, trying to create a new company brand and treat the product brand that everybody knows you by as just that one product. I think we've seen that as potentially there's a huge risk there because people aren't thinking of, this particular widget as, the company name, as the company reputation. They're thinking of the entire company and everybody that they've interacted with as that name, as that reputation.